Hello friends. In February, I spun all of this, and like half of this. I've been very busy. Hello friends, my name is Marina and this is Rapunzel Fiber Arts. I am a knitter and a spinner and an all-around crafter, and this is my channel where I talk about some of my crafting adventures and exploits. Stay tuned for exploits. There definitely have been exploits. Anyway, thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited to be here with you. I promise we will get to all those big spinning projects. First off, I want to show you the progress I made on my Reprieve Cardigan. Or Reprieve Cardigan? I'm not actually sure which way I should pronounce that. Probably should figure that out since I'm test knitting it. Reprieve. I'm not sure. Anyway, I've been knitting on it. Here is all that I have. You can kind of see how much I've done. And I actually still have that stitch marker on one of my fronts to tell us where we were at the beginning of February. Here it is. So this stitch marker is where I was at the beginning of February. I believe I have worked about 6 inches since February started. I'm gonna have to do a little bit more before I do the ribbing. But I'm thinking that I'm going to do the sleeves first. Anyway, this is the Reprieve Cardigan by Celine Phaeton. This is a test knit I'm doing for her. As you can see, we've got lace up at the top, both in the fronts and in the back, and then the rest of the garment is stockinette. Now you can see, I'm sure, right here, that the colors kind of switch from dark to light. And I am now alternating skeins, but I wasn't at the beginning, so may that be a warning to myself, because I'm sure I will forget at some point. So if I ever am like, I'm not alternating skeins, remind me, I should alternate skeins, especially with hand-dyed yarn, especially with mini skeins, because I don't like the striping a ton. But it's a test knit, so I'm going to power through and try to get it all finished, because if I tried to frog back and start at the beginning again, I definitely would not have enough time. This test knit is theoretically due at the end of this month, March, at the end of March. But the designer has been talking about potentially extending that deadline. So I'm hopeful that that happens, because I have a lot to do still. I have both sleeves and 2 inches of stockinette on the body, and then like 5 inches of ribbing beneath that. Plus there's a button band that you have to pick up and knit. So, or maybe it's a knit on button band. I forget. I have to look at the pattern. But that's, I'm going to do the sleeves first, because I'm not 100% sure if I'm actually going to have enough yarn for this project. I have about 200 grams left, a little more than that, out of 500 grams total. And I'm worried that each sleeve might take 100 grams. So I'm thinking about using a different color of green in my stash. I have like a solid green for the cuffs, the button band, and the ribbing at the bottom. So if I have to do that, I will, but I have to knit the sleeves first to determine if I'm actually going to need to do that. You know, if I only use 100 grams, maybe I'll have enough to do everything but the button band or something like that. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, hoping that I have enough yarn to at least do that minimum of everything but the, you know, ribbed and button band parts. So I'm going to definitely pick up the pace on this. If you watched my last video, which I will link up in the cards, I talked about a week of spinning that I did at the end of this month. So I actually made really good progress on this for the week that I was knitting on it. I did like 5 inches in a week, which is great. But then last week, the last full week of February, I was participating in a spinning competition, so I was spinning instead of knitting, so I didn't work on this. But that means that if I can knit 5 inches in a week, even with the month deadline, I might be able to do, or the end of month deadline, I might be able to finish this. And it seems like other testers are also going to need more time, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I need to pick this back up and get back to work on it, because that week of spinning kind of threw me off, and now all I want to do is spin, which is not awful, but it is distracting, and this is a test knit that has a deadline. The yarn that I'm using for this is Ruby and Roses. The colorway is Spruce Grove, and the base is Rose Gold, which is why you might be able to see there's a little bit of sparkle in there. I hope you can see, because it's really pretty, and I like the sparkle a lot. So yeah, I'm gonna work on this in the next month, obviously. Hopefully finish it, hopefully get it all done for Celine so that she can publish the pattern whenever she's ready. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Not 100% sure. I'm hopeful, but we'll have to wait and see. So next up is a spinning project. I have spun about half this bobbin since I last saw you. I had been working on it, and then I wasn't really spinning, and then I decided I needed to spin a little bit to get ready for Spin Together and get ready for spinning a lot so that my hands weren't like cramping up and stuff like that. I don't have to worry about my legs because I use an e-spinner, at least most of the time. But yeah, I didn't want my hands to be cramping up, and I didn't want it to be something I was out of the habit of doing. So I spun about half this bobbin, and then another project before the event actually started. So this is Polwarth. It is hand dyed by me. And I have more of it to show you that is both, I got some unspun fiber, and I have yarn that I spun prior to this. So this is the other yarn that I have spun. You can see they go pretty well together. I think I dyed these all at once to try to color match something. And so I did one purple pink, and one purple blue. And so my plan is to take these 3, you can't really see that, hang on, is to take these 3 and ply them together. Obviously, I still have some spinning to do. This is probably 6 to 8 ounces of fiber, maybe more than that. So I'm going to spin that up onto a bobbin, and then do a 3-ply, and then I'll figure out what to do with my leftovers, because at least as of now, this bobbin is more full than this bobbin, so I'll probably run out of this bobbin first, out of these 2. So I'll either chain ply or make a center pull ball and make it a 3-ply if I run out of one of my singles. So it's usually one of the things that I do. Yeah. And by that I mean take a ball of, like take a center pull ball, take your bobbin that still has a single on it, draw from both ends of the center pull ball, and then draw from the bobbin, and then you get a 3-ply. Hopefully that made sense. I don't want to confuse anyone, so I wanted to explain what I meant. So yeah, this was a super fun project. It got me back into the swing of spinning, which was pretty fantastic, and I still have some work to do on it, but I'm excited to see what it looks like when it's all done, because I think it's going to be really pretty. In other news, I broke this bobbin. You can see right at the top there's a crack. Yeah, it was very sad, but I contacted the company that makes them, which is called Acreworks, and they said they would send me a free replacement piece. So that's actually already here. I haven't opened the package yet. But once this is wound off, I will discard this end of the bobbin, throw the new end on, and have a functional bobbin. And that was free. That's part of their warranty policy, which I wanted to mention because I love these bobbins, and the fact that they're on a warranty, like a lifetime warranty, is really nice. Alright, so next up is another knitting project. You've seen something similar to this if you watched last month's video, which was about 2 weeks ago. At least 2 weeks as of filming. But this is my second Melt the Ice hat. I have not worked on it since I filmed that video 2 weeks ago. Dog hair. And that's because I've been, when I'm knitting, prioritizing my test knit because I'm a little worried about that deadline, if you couldn't tell. So this has not had a ton of action on it in the month of February. I mean, I started it in February. I started it February 3rd. And worked on it for about a week, maybe into 2 weeks before I kind of set it aside. And I'm fine with that. I do still want to make a plethora of Melt the Ice hats. But I really have to finish this test knit, and I committed to it and want to be a responsible adult. So I'm going to keep working on that test knit, put this on the back burner, and then come back to it once I finish that fingering weight cardigan that I'm working on. I love it. It's very pretty, but it's a lot of work. So my next project, which was a spinning project, also in preparation for the Spin Together week of spinning, was this. This was some fiber I got in a D-stash, and I actually had multiple different colors that I pulled off small chunks of and then spun the chunks consecutively to make a very unique bobbin. Obviously this is now caked because I'm getting ready to center pull ball ply it. It's going to be a 2-ply. Look at the shine on that. My goodness. We got silk, we got sparkle. I think the main fiber in this is BFL, but it was not, like I bought the D-stash knowing I wouldn't know what anything was unless it was clearly labeled, and this was not. But judging by the feel, I think it's blue-faced Leicester, or BFL. And then, like I said, there's some silk in there, there's some sparkle in there. And it was really nice to spin. I did a pretty cool technique with this. I did something called combo drafting, which is where you take your fiber in your fiber supply hand and you actually lay like 2 little sausages of fiber down, and then you pull from both of them at once. And it makes this, like, I hope you can see this. If not, I'll put up some pictures. But it's got like a barber pole effect in the singles because it's 2 different colors. It's like this dark bluish purple spun with a variety of greens and some pink and some brown and some blue. And it turned out really nice. I had actually tried this 2-3 years ago with the same fiber and made a sample skein, which looks like this. So that'll give you a sense of what this will look like when it's all plied up. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. I have named this project Rainbow Fish because it reminds me of the rainbow fish, which is like in picture books, I think. Yeah, Rainbow Fish picture books from my childhood. So yeah, this was my next spinning project. I had a ton of fun with it. I spun these singles between February 13th and 17th. So I did all of this in 4 or 5 days. I don't know how much this weighs, but it's at least 6 ounces of fiber. This filled my bobbin pretty well, and it's obviously a very large cake. So, yeah, I'm really happy with this yarn. I think it is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm excited to ply it and then hopefully make something really cool with it. And then my last 2 projects are both projects I spun during the week of Spin Together. You can go watch my last video, which I have linked up in the card, so it's also in the description below. But Spin Together is this like week of spinning camaraderie. You like, well, I got together with a physical in-person team, but there are also virtual teams. We had a couple virtual members, and you just get together, either virtually or in person, and spin yarn as much as you can for a week. And you don't only have to spin when you're in person, or like with people, you can spin the whole time. So I spun for almost 42 hours that week. I timed most of my spinning. I definitely missed a couple snippets, but for the most part, that should be accurate. And I'm pretty proud of that. I spun like a full-time job. And in addition to that, I am very excited about what I made. Everything I spun was from bats that I had carded. And I guess with no further ado, we'll show you some of the goodies. So first off, we have this lovely yarn, which all the fiber was based off of K-pop Demon Hunters. So what I did, I have some fiber left, so I'll show you exactly what I did. So I had these 4 colors, which I had carded up. They are semi-solid, merino, and some silk, and I think that's it. And my goal with this was to have it look like the Saja boys when they're singing Soda Pop. So this set was called Soda Pop. And then I also had these, which I called a demon boy band with a question mark at the end. And that's more like their demon personas. So whenever they're like looking demony, this is kind of the colors that come up. And then I plied those 2 together for kind of the ultimate Saja boy yarn, which I'm really excited about. So anyway, put these away, go back to the yarn. So I stripped the multicolor stripes into about 1/10 of an ounce bits, and then went through the sequence from, it was like the orange to the green, blue to the purple. And then, like I said, plied it with the other colorway that I had made. And I'm delighted with this yarn. I think it is absolutely lovely. The wool is all merino. It's merino silk. I think I already said that. But yeah, it's really nice. It's still a little damp. I washed these yesterday, and the other yarn is dry. This still needs to dry a little bit longer, but it was dry enough that I could at least hank it to show you how pretty, because it's really pretty, and I'm really proud of it. So that was my first spin. It is almost 6 ounces, and before washing, it was about 600 yards. So I imagine it will have shrunk a little bit in circumference. So I'll measure that once it's all the way dry. That's not too shabby. I am very, very pleased with making this yarn as well as the other yarn, which I'm going to show you now. One last thing about this yarn. I spun it over the course of 6 days, from the 21st through to the 26th, and that includes plying. So I cruised through this. But I also cruised through this, because this is force gains. This is almost 1,900 yards. And 19 ounces. So I'm about 100 yards per ounce on all these yarns, including the Saja Boy yarn, which will shrink a little bit because of washing, especially for this. So this is a Romney fleece that I processed from a raw fleece. It is a lovely gray. I don't know if it's going to show up on camera as gray or as brown, but it is like a charcoal with silver streaks through it. It has an amazing shine. The shine is not as potent as it would be if this was worsted spun. But my goal for this project was to make Romney soft. For those who might not be aware, Romney is like a medium to long wool, definitely closer to medium, but like it tends towards coarser instead of something fine. But I love it. I love the way it spins. I love the little bit of crunch that the fiber gives you in terms of coarseness. Like I call that a crunch because you can kind of feel it crunching when it's not as fine and slippery smooth. So that was my goal, was to make this soft. So what I did was I spun my singles with very little twist. Like when I was plying at a couple points, it fell apart on me. But that's okay. I just like laid those singles back over the broken spot and it was fine. As long as you have a stretch where it's a 3-ply and not a single ply, it's fine. I've done that many a time. Sometimes the ends poke out, but as long as you're careful about it and give yourself enough overlap, it's really okay. So I spun the singles with very little twist. I also spun it long draw, which means that it was woolen spun. And then when I plied, I did a pretty normal ply twist. I didn't really over or under ply it. There, you can probably see here right in front of my finger. So yeah, that's what I did. It turned out lovely. I made a sample before I plied to make sure I knew if I wanted a 2-ply or a 3-ply, and I decided on a 2-ply. But this yarn is absolutely scrumptious. It is so, so, so nice. I have 2 more bobbins that I have spun since finishing the week of spinning, so since March 1st. And then I'll ply it, and then I'll have 6 skeins instead of 4. Maybe a little more than that, which is a decent amount. So I'm hoping I can get at least a vest, but I might be able to get a full sweater out of this yarn, which I'm very excited about. So this fiber is local to me. It is from Barbaric Farm in Shelburne Falls, near Shelburne Falls, Mass. And this was a half-year lamb fleece. So this is like the very first haircut this sheep got halfway through its first year. So the staple length is pretty short. Staple length was about 3 inches. And that was the other reason I wanted to spin it long draw, is that it's much easier to spin long draw, or it's much easier to spin shorter staple fibers when you're spinning long draw. And then the sheep's name was Ulster. And I always like knowing my fiber's name. The original fleece was about 5 pounds. I lost a pound or a pound and a half to washing. And then I also had spun some of this years ago because this was a fleece from 2017, I believe. So it's seen some things. Let's say that. It's been in my stash for quite a while. And I had started spinning it with like a short forward draw, worsted style, and didn't love how it was turning out. It was still pretty coarse. But I only had like half the fleece left to spin, and I put it off for a year or 2 because I was frustrated with the yarn that I was making. And then I had the idea to spin it soft, and I'm so glad I did. I wish that I had done it with the whole fleece, so I had the whole fleece worth, but I'll take half the fleece worth of lovely, beautiful yarn, and I'll find a project for it, even if it's not a sweater. But I'm really happy with this. Really happy with this, and I'm really happy with this, and I'm really happy with this. I'm really happy. I'm really happy with my fiber right now. So, if we bring it all back to the Stashdown, last month, finished objects, we only got 2 ounces worked through, or 190 yards, I believe, on that finished Melt the Ice hat. And this month, we worked through 25 ounces of fiber. And that's just this. So once this is finished, this will count for March. And so well, I don't know if I'll finish the purple project in March or if that's going to be a later project, but I love my spinning. I love my Handspun, and I'm really happy with my week of spinning and how much I did. So that is gonna be the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that this inspired you to try something new, like spinning Romney woolen and super soft spun. It might pill, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm still happy with it, and it's super cozy. So anyway, I hope you have a lovely day. I will try to stop being sidetracked. I hope you get some good crafting in, and let me know in the comments what your favorite project that I showed you today is. Mine's definitely the Romney fleece. I'll see you next time. Bye, friends! They might work together, to be honest, which is a little alarming, but they might.